We have only 35 chambers. There is no 36.
I know that. But I want to create a new chamber.
And what would that be?
I think Shaolin techniques should be available to all. So then, that's my idea for a new chamber. To teach the martial arts to the people. Anybody.
All right, welcome back to another episode of My Three Cents. We must teach the martial arts to the people, the 36th chamber. All right, let's get it. So, welcome back to those that are members, subscribers, however you want to put it. My faithful listeners, I appreciate y'all, man. I really do. And thank y'all for not expecting me to do this on some type of regular schedule because, like I said before, I know myself, I know who I and what I am, and how I'm represented here, right? And we start talking about knowing ourselves. You pretty much have to collect pieces of yourself, put yourself together, and see what you look like. So that's basically what I've been able to do over years, and I'm still doing it. It's never something that's done and complete because you are always a work in progress, right? So me being an INFJ personality, as far as my masculine identity, what society would deem me is a sigma male, not an alpha, not a beta, but a sigma. And if you don't know what a sigma male is, you should look that up. Now, matter of fact, a sigma is, because we've all heard alpha, we've all heard beta. A sigma is, for example, let's say a sigma is both, but neither, right? A sigma is the one who actually lets the alpha in the room that needs the attention get the attention. We don't want the attention. That's the sigma. He knows everything happening in the room, and if at any time he wanted to control the room, he could. But he usually doesn't because that time is spent on pondering, analyzing. So that's, in a nutshell, basically a sigma personality. He's definitely not a beta, and he's definitely not an alpha because an alpha needs credibility from other people. An alpha needs that approval from other people. An alpha definitely has social media, and they need them likes, right? So you got to collect yourself and know who you are. So this is what I'm saying. I know who I am, right? I know what I'm becoming to an extent. The knowledge is the totality of everything that encompasses this mission, this journey, this experience of what they call life, right? This is one reason I don't really like to talk about topics that people argue about because I don't have anything to prove to anybody, right? So whenever I'm delivering something, I'm just really getting it off my chest, but at the same time, I think it can help you. I think this could help you figure something out. And if you're listening to this podcast, then you're already on that journey. You're already on that mission to discover, or let's say rediscover, self, right? So what I want to really get into is identification crisis. What is identification crisis? Why is it happening? This is why it's important to know what you're made of. Collect yourself. The dangerous part in all this is that the ones who don't go around and collect themselves are going around and mimicking other people who have not collected themselves. Let me let that sink in. So you got people going around listening to everybody else about what they're doing, and then you got people copying them, right? So even if it looks like they're successful, whatever you think success is and all this, it ain't always what it's cracked up to be. Be yourself. I teach my daughter this every day. Be you, be happy being you. She is. She's very confident. She's not shy. And, I love seeing that in her. That ability to go out and grab the bull by the horns and not have that anxiety and different things that I grew up with that I had to overcome, right? Beautiful thing. So, identification crisis. I was thinking about this and I'm like, when I read historical books, and when I say historical, I'm talking about more of occult knowledge, what they would call initiate knowledge or, hidden aspects of things, right? Because we know that whether it's a table, a chair, a lamp, I don't care what you're talking about, if you're able to touch that thing, then we're just talking about the surface, right? And there's always something under the surface. So if you can acknowledge surface and say, yes, this is the surface of the table, this is the surface. If you can acknowledge a surface, then you can't be too ignorant to not acknowledge what's underneath. And the knowledge is that there's always something underneath, or there would be no surface, right? So I'm thinking about how, blacks in this country, and I can't speak for the world, but blacks in this country feel unequal. That is one of our main gripes about this place, is that we're fighting about equality. And I always talk down on equality. I don't believe in equality. I don't fight for anything, right? If you got to fight for it, it ain't yours. And you might not be needing to fight for what you're fighting for, because if it was supposed to be yours, you'd have it, right? So this whole equality thing, I don't even think equality exists. I get that it's a word, right? I get that it has a definition. I kind of said that. I did that on purpose, right? This is a different episode I'll get into about the Phoenicians, phonetics, and how we get with these words, because these words have us trapped so bad. We argue about how to say this and who says what, and we need to focus more on the energy of what's being said and even who's saying it. So with identification crisis, for black people, is very detrimental. If you start a black child off not knowing who they are, and then they're able to, or they're allowed to just mimic life, that's like rolling the dice on who this person will become and if they will ever become whole within themselves. And I think a lot of parents forget that that's the mission. If you have a child, like, the main mission should be to bring them a later wholeness, right? The main mission should be everything that you're exchanging with your kid is so that their future, they can have a grip on themselves and not be an adult who's lost. And it's crazy because adults raise kids. Well, we have some babies raising babies now, but for the most part, adults raise kids. So adult or people that should be in their adepthood should have enough lessons under their belt to pass down the knowledge, right? These lessons, so that these kids can grow up and have more structure and have more to them, right? So here's the problem. We've gotten to a generation now, multiple generations back to back, that don't have knowledge to pass down. They have all been imitating. They have all been watching TV. They have been too into the music, too into the food, too into the drugs, and too into the drink. And now it's become a more selfish existence is what I'm seeing, because now, even when you get to a certain age, and now people are saying, well, I got to do me. It's about me now. I got to make life about me. And I'm like, your life always been about you. And what you don't realize is that you're just having a late realization that's really about to throw you off course, because this was supposed to happen in your 20s, in your formative years. You weren't able to progress a certain way. You weren't able to grow up in a certain structure that was stable. So you end up an adult really just acting like a kid. We know this thing. I talk about it all the time. The man boy, the women, that supposedly mature faster than men, but we don't talk about the levels of maturity and the different types of maturity. We're not talking about sexual maturity, see? Because there's different things that can be matured. So, yeah, she matures faster than the men in a lot of areas, but that's not necessarily a great thing if we don't understand it. So if you're raising a daughter or a son, you know what I'm saying. If you're raising both, you know what I'm saying. They're both going to catch these lessons different when you give them out. And the boy is going to just catch it different than the female and vice versa, because that is the nature of nature, right? I've never seen a squirrel try to date a bird. I've never seen different things try to argue one that he should be what he is. Just think about it. So what we have now is this crazy identification crisis in our community, right? Our women, I got to go to the women first because, see, they are the reproducers, the ones that are supposed to be the nurturers. And, ladies, I got to go to you first because you're the one talking the loudest. Listen to what I'm saying. You're the one talking the loudest. You're the one saying you know the most and that you are the most. So what that does is causes a magnifying glass to be put on you. It's not a negative thing, but if you don't want attention, don't ask for it. Because you can't just get the type of attention you want. It don't always work like that, right? So I feel like the woman is in a place where, for the most part, not all. You know, I generalize, but you guys should know by now what I really mean, right? Where she don't know who she is. And it's a generational thing because you'll have a younger generation of women who really don't know who she is. I'm talking about these females now. Every week their hair a different color. Their diet is crazy. They don't take any kind of supplement or exercise. I mean, just there's people that are literally throwing themselves away for the approval of other people that are throwing themselves away. Okay? Not just women. But this is just I'm just talking about women right now. So with the females, when you coming up, you know, because I'm raising a daughter, right here in the house, you know, as a female coming up, man, I see some of the things that you guys are exposed to, go through. I always notice older men are, look, some of these guys, man, God, dog. I noticed these guys, you know, men don't care how old a female, they don't care about none of that. They gonna look just to see. A lot of little things I notice. But my point is this. When you raise these girls up with an identity, when you give them their own identity, same with the black boys. When you give them their own identity, or let's say this, when you allow them to claim their own identity, when you're not trying to make them become something, because society said that's what you're supposed to do. Little Joey, you need to grow up and be a doctor or a such and such or a such and such. And now his focus is on what you think he should be. And I know that a lot of us parents think that we're doing the right thing when we're like that, but you're not. You're absolutely not. And what you're really doing is pulling them away from what they might become based upon who they really are and who they discover themselves to be. Remember, life is about discovery. It is a mission of discovery. You are always finding out something new about yourself if you are always engaging. If you don't engage, you don't get data, right? That's why data is good, because you can make a lot of decisions based on past data. You can even start predicting the future a little bit based on data. That's something that I do pretty well because, again, there's certain personality types that have more of a psychic touch where we can see things and see a little bit more, right? So it's very important to give these kids an identity, because what you might not be thinking about is if you are not super active in your child's identity, guess who is? Everybody else. See how that works? If you're not super active in your child's development of their identity, everybody else will take your place. TV, music, school, the kids at school, situations that aren't even theirs that they're hearing other people go through, all these things will affect them, ultimately leaving them to fend for themselves. Because now, in a child's mind, even though they can't comprehend this, it becomes a situation where the child and the adult, the gap between us have become too wide. Adults even do this to this day with relationships, right? Think about this. You've been in a relationship with somebody for a while. There was a point and sometimes multiple points, but let's just talk about one. There was a point where we started kind of being at odds a little bit, and what really happens is there's an issue, one issue, it doesn't get fully resolved. It doesn't get fully resolved. You know, black people are quick to call each other petty. We are quick to call each other petty when some of us are trying to get down to the bottom of something. So just remember, that's not petty. Because getting to the bottom of something, you don't got to be emotional. Just go ahead and do it. Because getting to the bottom of something will allow that thing to be demystified. And you ain't got to worry about it, think about it, or try to figure it out anymore. Right? So when you got the whole world, the media, and I haven't said the biggest one, but it is actually school. Not the kids at school, but school itself. Because remember, this is what it was designed for. It was designed for hours out of the day, indoctrination. We want them to come up a certain way. You're parenting your kids. The government is parenting your kids. You are the parents or the pair that rents. I done told y'all this before. Get your etymology up. You are the guardian, the one that guards and protects. You are not the owner. Should there be an owner? Absolutely not. But when we're talking about legalities, you're not the owner. This is why somebody can call the police on you and your family, and they can come, check, and take your kid because you don't own that kid. You don't, let's say you don't own the rights to that child. This is how real this place is. While we arguing about this and that, you don't even own your kids. Focus on that. Focus on what you can do within your family, within your circles, within your structures, instead of talking about what you can't or what you feel like you can't do. So you got school giving them their identity. Now, a lot of people were going off about, what is it where you teach the kids at school about slavery? I forget the name of it right now. It slips my mind. But it's this whole thing where they teach the kids, hey, little black kids, y'all used to be slaves. Hey, little white kids, y'all used to be masters. And you kind of still are. You know, it's under the guise of teaching them about systematic racism, but you're really showing them how well their ancestors' plan has been working out at the same time. So it all comes down to perspective once again. You know, some kid could get the power trip in them and say, hey, man, shit, if it's in my blood, let's keep it rolling, right? And that's what a lot of the stuff is now. It's just passed down and actually honored, okay? Whether it's racism or love, it's passed down and it's honored. That's why it still exists. Somebody honors it, okay? So honor your kids, honor your family, honor yourself, because I'm telling you, this identification crisis is real. Now, what does it come from? How do you know if you're falling into an identification crisis? How do you know if you're not you? Well, that is the main ingredient to the identification crisis. It is being under the teachings where you actually begin to identify as something that you are not. And because you don't know that's what you're doing, it causes this type of inner turmoil or inner conflict where you can't find wholeness. And this actually, as a child, begins your journey away from wholeness. Now, remember, it's all supposed to be like this, but there's also ways that we've been given to operate, right? There's tools, there's powers and abilities that we've been given to get through this stuff the most effective way and not damage each other and damage ourselves in the process. You'll just be doing it again. So when you get that inner confusion or that miseducation that you get from school, it tears the kids up. And if they don't have that connection with mommy or dad or somebody at home, man, that's a rough road. You know, that's a rough road. I was kind of one of those kids. And what you do is you start finding your friends and people at school that identify with what you're going through, and y'all become tight based upon what y'all are both going through. And that's all relationships. We're choosing people for the wrong reason 9 times out of 10 because we're just trying to identify with ourselves through somebody else. I personally think that it should be more so like you see something in somebody and you feel like you can add to them, and then they see something in you and feel like they could add to you. Not saying you need to be going around trying to add to people, but if that's just the mentality going in, I think there's less chance of a messed up relationship, right? And that's just another form of transparency at the same time. So when we go back to the women with the identity crisis, how does this happen? Right? How does this happen with the identification crisis? Because it's an identity crisis, but it's an identification crisis. Those are two different things. You can't identify yourself. Therefore, there is no identity yet. Not a real one. So it's really an identification crisis. And going back to the adults and the women, women are more or less teaching the young girls how to not identify with who they could be, and more so to identify with what I am. That is what everyone is doing. That is what the internet has us doing. That's what, all these different websites, only about 6 websites that people go through. And that's what they all got you doing, trying to get liked and affected by somebody. Because you don't know who and what you are. You're going to constantly look for that. And even if you're putting out great content, cool. But don't do it for the likes. Don't do it for the accolades. Just do it. Just do it and be done with it. If it's what you're supposed to be doing, just do it. Don't talk about it. Just do it. These are things I had to learn myself because I have so many grand ideas. What comes with grand ideas, guys? Talking about them. Now, it's a good thing I'm a man of action, right? Or I wouldn't be getting any respect out here. So that actually became one of my good attributes. I would be able to say something, and then people knew if he said it, oh, he gonna do it, because he wouldn't have said it. So you can even flip stuff like that and become your strength. And they say instead of you disclosing too much, when people start hearing you disclose things, they start to feed into the positive energy of it and say, yeah, he is going to make it happen because that's how he is. He is, right? So there's identification all over the place. The problem is when we're being identified as something we're not. That angers us, especially blacks. You get pissed off when, and a lot of Europeans, white people don't know this, but we get upset when we're grouped in with other black people that don't conduct themselves the way we do. Now, I've been, let's say 3, 4, maybe of the different types of black people, right? If we're going to categorize. But that's throughout growing up. That's throughout growing up. I was supposed to be mutating and shapeshifting while I was growing up and growing out. That's the point. So that's why I'm really able to see these things like, yo, this is so different now. Because now people don't know who they are. Our women are 90% a copy of the European woman. 10% that's left is like attitude or something. I don't know. It's this disdain that you want to be. See, I love psychology. And what I feel when I watch a lot of black women operate is that they have this disdain for themselves. It's something within that they are not proud of. For what, I don't know why, right? And it's a lot of black men that's like that too. There's something in a lot of black people that they are not proud of. So we go around saying things like black is beautiful, black pride. You don't have to say those things if you have those things. Please understand and understand that when you're chanting and doing this stuff, it is supreme evidence that you lack those things. Because your energy would not be on talking about those things if that's what you already were. You get what I'm saying? So a lot of us just, and I always say, and I believe that it's a genetic disposition. I think that we are genetically depressed. There's something going on with the black individual that if you don't do shadow work, if you don't go through the dark night of the soul, if you don't put that personal time and work in, meditation, um, conversation, just thinking to yourself, pondering deep thoughts, expanding, letting things come into your mind. And a Christian would immediately say, no, don't do that. Don't open your mind, right? But the knowledge is this. When you, let's say, read a book that you've never read, or find out information, or have a conversation that you've never went into because it wasn't your expertise, guess what? Every time you do that, your brain expands. Your consciousness expands. Your net expands. And here's the coolest part. It can't detract. It can't go back to a smaller size. So this is why I always lean toward expansion. Talking things out and figuring it out, building, right? I always lean towards that because I know that that's something that actually can fight off other things that have just been a detriment to us for so many generations. Just opening up. Just opening up can help you discover who and what you are. If you have kids, please take that serious because your kids are you. If you keep being upset with your kids, do you not know that you're just upset with yourself because your kid came out like you and you couldn't do nothing about it for some reason? And it's probably because you didn't do that shadow work. You didn't have that stuff under your belt that you could pass down. You had understanding, but you didn't have understanding, and you possessed no overstanding. You had nothing to give. So you're sitting there in the position, because once you're parenting, you can't stop, right? You are that. So are you thriving or are you thrashing, right? Are you swimming or are you flailing? There's a difference. And we normally recognize which is which by simply observing the kids. And we say, okay, I can tell you was raised by such and such type of person, such and such. So all this identification and identity goes back and forth. It's reciprocal. The more you allow your child to become who they are, the more you understand who you are. It's a beautiful thing. It's a type of matrix that you're supposed to welcome and go through and dive through. It's work because it involves you, right? Things that don't involve you are not work. So if it involves you, I guarantee you it can evolve you. All right? So just, my whole thing with the women is that you all have something that men don't have. You have a connection with each other that men don't have. You got to understand, and you got to overstand. You got to study yourself. You got to first understand the body, but then you got to overstand that thing. Because once you do that, it opens the galaxy. It opens infinity. Something that we couldn't grasp anyway, but we can stand there in awe, and we can stand there in the presence of it. You see? So one thing that women have that men don't have as far as the connection is the Eve mitochondria. It is the mitochondrial connection. Look this up if you don't know what that is. So ladies, especially you ladies, look up the Eve mitochondria. And I guarantee you, you're going to think different about every woman and female that you see, related to you or not. Because what you will realize after you study the Eve mitochondria is that you are all related. And it is only something that women have. A woman, the first woman, passed down the mitochondria. And the mitochondria can only be passed woman to woman. It cannot be passed to a male. A male cannot pass it to anyone. See? So this is another powerful thing that you guys possess, but don't seem to know how to really use. And I'll say most of you don't seem to know how to use it. Some of you do. Some of you know what you possess. You know these are smaller versions of you. You know that you're blessed to live with a duplicate of self. That way, you can work on yourself double time. And the byproduct is the other part of you that you're working on and raising gets to come up and continue life as you go away. right? So, I mean, this is all what we're supposed to be here doing. So the kids are always the key. They're not the future. You are. You are. You're the future because you are the ones affecting the kids. The kids are only going to be what you are. They're only going to be what you told them they could be. They're only going to be what you showed them they could be. So if you're not putting that work in, and what do I mean by putting that work in with the kids? It's real simple. You know, look, I'm a parent every single day. It's tiring sometimes. But here's the thing. You know, when they come to you and they're excited about something, please get excited. It ain't going to be all the time, I know, but 99% of the time, please try to work up some excitement for them kids because you're going to ruin them if you don't. When they come to you and want to talk about something, be grateful that your child want to talk to you and be personal with you, and go ahead and accept that because later what you're going to get from that is something you need. It's going to be that strong connection. You know how many females I know that have beefed with their mother? I know a lot of women that don't get along with their mother. And I just grew up thinking that women just don't like women. I always thought that women don't get along with other women, generally. I never could really understand why, but I've always observed it. And, you know, when I really started diving into the knowledge and discovered the mitochondria and the whole Adam and Eve connection, right? Because the mitochondria is located within the atom, right? I said to myself, man, if anything, women should be closer to each other than anybody else because y'all are all relatives. Let's not even get into sexual preference because y'all are all relatives. So, yeah. But that's also why you can't reproduce with each other, right? Nature knew. Might be some experimenting. we can't give them the ability to do that with each other because they all hold something that ties them all. Who knows what would have came from that, right? If a woman or a male could get a female pregnant, that would just be wild, right? Even though we did come from a time when you study occult knowledge where the women of what is now called California, what used to be an island, did have the ability to procreate. And I've spoken about that before, about the type of creature, and I won't say human, but the type of creature that existed before us and before them and before them. So you guys got to remember and realize we are the gross form. We're the bottom of the barrel, okay? That's why we seem like we're trying to figure this all out. We were dropped into something with a memory wipe, okay? So what you got to really understand is that all that is you anyway. All that is you anyway. This has all been an example of miseducation and misinformation. You know, they have led us down so many wrong paths, we don't even remember who or what we are. So you got to understand, you're everything. You come from everything. There's no need to choose anything. Just be. So when it comes to these children, the kidneys, the body, and that's another thing, the kids, the kidneys, right? Do your research. Understand the knowledge of these words. Why would we name an organ that does these functions the kidney, and then call these children not just children, but also kids? You guys got to know where this stuff comes from. Do your homework. You'll find out something new. I don't always want to tell you because I want you to expand your own horizon. You can get that for yourself. You'll be sitting there feeling yourself because you close that book and you're just like, wow, okay, I just got something I didn't have. That's a powerful thing to be able to do that. And every day is the opportunity to flex the ability to do that. To become new again, just like the day does, right? The day collects all its things that we all do, and then it goes on, it resets to a new day or degree. It's just a different degree, right? So it's very important, man, just to, I would say, self-identify. Right now we have a time where people don't want to be the gender anymore. You know, it's all kind of stuff going on with identity, with identification. There's a crisis because too many people have been confused and left out in the cold confused. Now they're really wandering. See? Wandering, left out, wondering, who am I? Because that's how they play the game here. They'll give you a handful of knowledge and information, but they're not going to break it down and tell you that this handful comes from 1,000 different sources. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to tell you that religion and Christian Bible, all that stuff, come from many sources that existed thousands of years before Christianity even popped its head up, right? We know this. But just staying on track with identification, I just felt like I wanted to talk about this because the kids now, man, every time I see these little boys, they're either imitating an NBA player, an NFL player, or a rapper. When I see these girls, they're normally imitating mama. And if mama don't have a close relationship with them, they're imitating the women on TV and the internet. That's what you don't want. That is what you don't want. Because once they get into that mind where they can understand things and understand, they can't even understand yet, but once they get to a place where they can understand, they're just going to take everything they can take. And if it's just internet feeding it to them, poisonous food. It's poisonous food for the soul. So, yeah, pay more attention and just think to yourself how you identify with yourself. What is your personality type? These aren't things written in stone to say, okay, you're an INFJ, that's what I am. No. It doesn't work that way. Remember, I said collect yourself. I said that at the beginning. This whole thing is about resonance, right? So the things you resonate with are a part of you. You just didn't realize it. How do you realize it? Because you resonate. Or they resonate with you, right? So that's how you know. You could never connect to something that was never connected to you. It wouldn't work. So this is a recollection. Again, to remember, the members just like the pieces. To remember is to bring the pieces back together. To recollect the pieces. Recollect. The stuff has been set up to be layers on top of layers on top of layers. So it will be hard for you guys, or just the average person, to see a lot of this stuff unless they had started the process, the initiate process, and unless you were initiated, which is to say, started to become activated, or like some say, waking up. However you want to put it, it's up to you. It's just words, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the energy of what we're talking about. And that's why it's important to build with your circles. Build with people that you know and that you value, because you don't have to mix your words. You don't have to over-explain yourself. You don't have to say, well, I mean this and I mean that. That is one of the great values of having a circle that you go to, spitball your ideas, and you build. It's not a place to debate or prove. That's ego. That's the thing that has to be dissolved when you first start the journey. That is the first thing that starts happening, is your ego starts to become dissolved. You start to see your egotistical ways. You recognize. You recognize. Cognizant functions. So if you're recognizing or recognizing, then what were you doing before? You were not cognitive. So these are just me mentioning all the different states that we're always in. The fluctuations. But within all these fluctuations and cycles are things we got to focus on. So in this one, the focus was the identification crisis. It is a crisis. Our boys don't know who they are, which will become men that don't know who they are, which will become men that don't know or give a damn who you are. Our women, our girls who don't know who their mother is, may not find themselves when they need to, and who knows what takes place on this journey before they find themselves. You vulnerable, ladies. You vulnerable as hell. Y'all are like natural prey. You don't want to admit that for some reason. Y'all want the man equality. It's because you want to feel like you want to feel dominant. That's penis envy. Let that go. You got more gifts than we got. We rely on logical, we rely on more logic and brutality. You guys bring life. But for some reason now, through this identification crisis, are focused on manipulation. Who want to admit that? Because the modern woman really ain't no good. Nobody wants her. The only ones that want her are the ones that can't get anybody. They want anybody. You ain't got to be naked online for them. They're already simping. They're already like that. Somebody like me will see you naked online, go in your inbox and say, "You cute, but you seem thirsty. It's not a good look. Somebody raised you better. Show your attributes instead of your butt." It's stupid. And it makes women look like you have nothing to offer. And it makes young girls feel like they'll have nothing to offer. They looking at their mama. You have a responsibility. Tighten yourself up. It is what it is. Now, if you that selfish that you'll destroy both of y'all, then that's just your journey, I guess. And you'll be doing this again. So it's just, when I see, that's why I like to focus on them kids, man, because they the next ones doing what we did and doing. They gonna do it slightly different, but it's gonna be the same stuff, just like now. Everything now is from the past. We know that. How can it not be? It's nothing new. You know how many times this sun then rotated or rose and fell or however you want to put it? It's seen it all. You might as well just look at the sun. You want the knowledge because the sun has seen everything, right? Children of the sun. That's us. So, yeah, man, this was just, I'm going to get out of here, but this was just a reminder to check your identity. Collect yourself. Find out what personality type you are. Take the Myers-Briggs test just to start there. Recognize that you are not a one of one. We all would like to believe we're a one of one, which in a way we are, but in many ways we're not. So when you start, because I got into that stuff late. And when I started seeing, I said, wait a minute, there's no way. I mean, even astrology, astronomy, you start looking at these things and you understand that everything we are is what those things up there are. Except we're the latest version. This is why Zodiac or Zudikaya, the Great Mother, this is why these things affect us. Because it is us. But the ego won't let you figure that out. He wants to be fed. So, check yourself out. Start paying attention to people around you. Look at your relationships. How are you treating your kids? I mean, I know you can get away with this and you can do this and that and turn your head to this to act like you don't hear that, but don't do that. Step your game all the way up. Maximize yourself. See what you can do. Trust me, it'll become a new habit. So let's not throw these kids by the wayside because I'm seeing too many articles and stories, man. Parents killing their own kids and the kids are killing everybody and killing the adults, and the young black boys cannot take the information from the black men nowadays. It's just all in a disarray. And I think that if we start back with self-identity and if we start in the home, how we identify with ourselves, how we identify with others, and how we carry those relationships out, I think that's the key. I think that is the key. So try the Myers-Briggs. Go look some stuff up. Once you figure out your personality type, listen to some people talk about it. See if any of that stuff relates to you. Look up your zodiac. Look at and understand that when you was born under a certain time in the stars, man, things were in a certain position. You can't deny that. You have to be a damn fool to act like you don't believe in things that are here. What do you mean you don't believe in them? But you acknowledge the sun and the moon. Okay. You acknowledge daytime, nighttime, which is celestial change, but you don't acknowledge the celestial change that happens inside of you when things above you change, as above, so below. You acknowledge the seasons changing throughout the year because of the celestial changes that happen above you, but you do not acknowledge how your energy does the same thing. You are seasonal. Collect yourself, all right? Do some homework on yourself. Collect yourself. So that's all I really wanted to say with this one. Repeat listeners, man, I appreciate y'all. New listeners, keep coming back. Check out some old episodes. All of these episodes connect. I always say this, but don't worry about the name of any of these episodes. They all are relative to each other. All is reflection. All is self, right? So this has been another episode of My 3 Cents. You see, no identification crisis. I know who I am. And until next time, wholeness, gratitude, and I hope I recognize you next time, right? From the infinite, wholeness and gratitude.